Hello once again, everybody. Welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live here on the channel. This is going to be the week of February 23rd, 2017. And boy, has it been an interesting week for everybody. So, starting off, we have not had any new Patreons this week, but we have earned a little bit more this month. There'll be about 1 week left if you'd like to get in any more donations for February and help us hit our first goal. We also have some interesting news in terms of subscribers. We are now up to a staggering just over 1,330 subscribers here on YouTube. So thank you to everyone who is liking and subscribing to the content. Hello, El Gordo. Thanks for joining us. As an interesting bit of news, it turns out I think we may be growing in popularity because I found that someone took one of my older videos and put it on their channel without asking me. So that's going to be interesting to deal with when I'm all done here. For those of you watching this live on Twitch, I will be uploading today's critical thought on pay or weight mechanics after our little cast here, so be sure to tune in for that. Now, for those of you who were watching our live discussion with Trayvon from Ninja 5 earlier this week, we were planning to have him on tonight, but unfortunately he had to cancel. But if everything goes accordingly, we'll be having a part 2 of our discussion tomorrow night. That will be Friday the 24th. And that will be uploaded for those of you watching this on YouTube right now. That part 1, part 2 will be uploaded Saturday and Sunday for everyone to enjoy. And of course, I'll have regular critical thoughts as well. Other than that, in terms of what else has been going on, we are getting closer and closer to my big, debut, my first set of live discussions. It's going to be happening March 11th at my local library. I'll be posting more information about that probably next week. But yeah, it's getting geared up for that. And the horror is starting to set in by the fact that I'm going to have to be speaking in front of a whole room of people. So that should be a lot of fun. But let's get to tonight before we go any further. Joining me, as always, contributor and co-host, James Ellerby.
Howdy, guys.
James, how are you doing? I know it's been a busy week for you as well.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a very hectic week
had
for both of us.
Yeah, had a little fender bender today, and so yeah, that was kind of something that happened. But other than that, yeah, doing pretty good.
I know you were looking forward to our cast with Trayvon, so hopefully he'll be on tomorrow, and we'll be able to have a big old discussion there. El Gore is saying, bring a cardboard version of myself to put in front of you when you speak. That'll be good. I'll put that on stage. I'll hide behind. We'll put a curtain up so no one will see me. That'll work. No one will ever suspect it unless someone accidentally knocks to go over. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Hi XP, thanks for joining as well. So, as a little bit of a GIF, as I was saying earlier, as you know, I bought the Humble Freedom Bundle, and I got quite a bit of games in there, and quite a lot that I already own. So going forward with our Game Wisdom Lives, I'm going to try to give out at least one game a week, maybe a few more depending upon how the audience goes. And what I'll do is, at the start of each one of these, I'll name the game that I'm going to be giving out, and then at some point during our little call tonight, we'll have a little bit of a pop quiz, and the first one to answer the question correctly in chat will get the key. This way, if it's already a game that you own, then you don't have to rush to answer it before you know what that is. So the game for tonight that I'll see about giving away will be a free copy of the Stanley Parable, the crazy game that makes us question existence and what are we doing with ourselves? So for those of you watching, at some point tonight, we'll stop things for a mini pop quiz, and we'll see if someone can win that free copy. Elgar's ain't be the gorillas of video games for my cardboard cutout. Alright, so with that said, I guess we'll get to some general topics about what we've been up to. So for me this week, other than doing a whole lot of chatting, I've been trying out, of course, more of Oxygen Not Included, the Dwarf Fortress style game from Clay Entertainment. And definitely looking forward to it. Still, it's very much along in terms of its build, but of course they have, I think, several months of alpha planned. Let me see. I guess for you, James, did you decide to pick up For Honor?
Yes, I have.
I know. I think El Gordo XP mentioned this a few days ago that they were talking about. Wow, my brain just failed me there. About the For Honor, they're adding microtransactions. I guess in the form of being able to buy the currency of it. Um,
Yeah.
what did you think about that?
Uh, yeah. For Honor is a really interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanically speaking, there are a lot of great things about it. Uh, and it's definitely a simplistic system that has
Mm-hmm.
its. It reminds you, it's a fighting game. Mechanically speaking, it is a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as like the marketing goes, like some of the things that they're doing now, all of this stuff can be bought with in-game currency,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the in-game currency can be bought with actual money. So, and none of it really affects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are parts of like a good 70 to 80% of it doesn't affect how you play the game. Now there are specific modes in once do your upgraded stats do come into play,
Mm-hmm.
um, where because they have a loot chest system. So and in the loot chests and the loot chests are paid for by an in-game currency, which I
Mm-hmm.
repeat again can be bought by which
Mm-hmm.
again can be bought by the
In-game
by actual with
currency.
actual with actual which can be bought again by actual money.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it kind of borders both worlds of being a pay to win and free to play. It almost seems
Mm.
like, which is odd because you already paid it. But
Yeah.
like, it's there are times where you're playing it where you almost feel like you're playing a
Mm-hmm.
pay to win game or a free to play game.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think that's kind of why El Gordo brought that up about
Hmm.
that regarding that kind of microtransaction thing. Of course, saying he hears a plate, he wants to know what you're eating if you're having a snack there.
Oh, I'm sorry about but my lady made me some spaghetti after the hectic
Mhm.
day we kind of had. So sorry about that.
No problem. I need to. I think what I'm gonna need to do is probably bring like a small like a mini bar to have next to me, so I just have 5 or 6
Mm,
drinks ready.
there you go.
So, getting back to with For Honor, or actually before we do that, I know Ogor, you were asking about the Discord setup. I do have a server set up, and we haven't had a chance to test it out. So, if one of you guys wants to be the guinea pig, we can try. I can try adding you or putting up the link and seeing we get this to work, or the whole thing will mess up live. Whatever you guys want there. I like pasta too, El Gordo. Getting with For Honor, I think that's kind of an interesting point. The fact that you can get these items by playing the game, the random loot drop or using the in-game currency, but they also give the option to spend premium,
Hmm.
and that again, it really skirts that line between pay to win and I guess technically it's a pay to play, really, because you're not playing it free to play.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the weird thing. Again, it does have that kind of I don't want to say stench, but smell of a free to play game that you paid $60 for. You know what I mean? And it's like I felt like I paid $60 for the chance to earn something that somebody else paid $80 for. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Uh,
and And from what I play of the game, I didn't get too far in terms of progress, but I did see this. So I think we mentioned this either last week or the week before. But the gear itself works by each part of the gear or each thing you wear, like either like a gauntlet, helmet, chest piece, whatever, modifies 3 stats, and then the different gear or different options for that gear set can
Yeah,
modify like different things. So let's say one chess piece modifies stat 1 and 3. Another
yeah,
chess piece modifies 2 and 1. And so on and so forth down the line. And from what I saw, it's not like a game like Diablo where the chess where pieces will like give you new skills or crazy things
no,
like
yeah,
that.
no. It's not new skills. It's just upping your
Yes.
way to play, your
Mhm.
efficiency. I guess it's more, yeah, it's upping your way to play and efficiency.
Mhm.
Because like attack and defense are things that you can upgrade. So like for the guy that decides, hey, I have an extra $100 after I
Mhm.
bought the game, and decides to get the money that he needs, he okay. So here's also the strange thing too. The way their loot system also works is also based on the leveling of the character. So if I take the basic character, the Warden, and I'm only level 1 through 20, I'm only going to be getting a certain type of gear. I can't
Mhm.
get gear past a certain point. So even if I bought all these loot chests
Mhm.
and just open them all right there um, for the Warden. Keep in mind the loot chests are locked are dependent on you are buying
Mhm.
loot chests for a character.
Yeah.
You're not just buying a loot chest and you get random gear. You're buying it for a specific character.
Yeah.
Now, I could buy. Let's say I just I pick up the game, buy like 20 loot chests, open them all up. I'm only getting low ranking stuff.
Mhm.
So when I get my Warden up to like a next level of prestige or a high enough level,
Mhm.
all the stuff that I just bought kind of becomes a little bit pointless as far as wearing. You can break it down for
Mhm.
scraps, which you can use to upgrade. But other than that, it's not really helping me in any way, shape, or form.
I guess for you, James, since you've played more than me, so
Mm-hmm.
the level actually does impact like the gear. Like, let's say a level two
Yes.
gear. So, like, if a level two gear would modify stat by like +3, a level
Yes.
five gear could modify by
Yes.
+6.
Yep. Exactly.
So that's kind of the rub there.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Does the game um there's no like level matchmaking. Like if I'm a level 5 player, I
Nope.
can meet level 20 players kind
No,
of.
yep. Yep. You might get put.
Ah.
Yep. Yep. Well, okay. So,
Mhm.
as far as I know, there's no like level matchmaking. So, like, what I've seen sometimes is I've been in groups with my friends, and we've all been different skill levels. So,
Mhm.
um, and when I get matched against some other people, they all been different skill levels as well. So,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to say whether or not that they I don't I would put my money on no. There is no matchmaking per skill ranking. You're
Mhm.
walking in. You might be fighting somebody who's prestige 3, gear rating 103 or something like that. Like
Mhm.
that's a high possibility. Um,
So and then as you're saying, if the gear itself, if they're using higher quality gear, now of course player skill is still a factor, but
yeah, and in this game, I
mm,
would manage to say that player skill is
mhm.
a really big 85 to 15%. So
Mhm.
85% skill matters. 15% your gear helps you. Because
Mhm.
like you can get things like I might even drop that a little bit lower, maybe even 70-30.
Mhm.
Because the very fact that you can affect things like throw distance, which in a game where there are environmental kills and
Mhm.
hazards, throw distance is everything.
Yeah.
Attack damage and defense damage, which in a game about hitting people and taking hits is that yeah, I might even drop that down to 60-40.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
as you continue to play the game, your opinion of whether or not the gear score matters increases and
Of
increases.
course, and it's
Yeah.
the same thing in any competitive based game. I mean, even stuff like Hearthstone and CCG games run that same line. We talked about this in an earlier discussion where once we're talking competitive level play, there's always that thought in the back of your mind is this person really that good?
Mm-hmm.
Or is their gear or their cars
Did they have the
really
money? Yeah,
exact?
am I playing against a $200 deck?
Hmm.
Like, and something I have to. It's funny. I'd like to say that I actually started playing the Pokemon trading card game online.
Hmm.
Now, I haven't played a Pokemon trading card game in ages since I probably played the game, or or um or
Hmm.
the game for the Game Boy, or the actual card game itself. And in playing the Pokemon TCG online, I'd almost have to say it's pretty balanced.
Hmm.
It's only a little sway. You can tell the people that either traded or went out and
Hmm.
bought the actual cards and not have a good high level deck. But even then, it's very much up to chance and playing. You
Hmm.
can counter it. And I'm just a new player coming in with no
Hmm.
skill whatsoever, just coming in and being like,
Hmm.
"Hey, I played Pokemon oodles of years ago. What can I do?" And the answer to that question is actually quite a lot. Which in a world full of power creeps, where especially in games like Magic the Gathering, where power creep was just so out of control that
Hmm.
there are different sets that cannot interact with each other.
Yeah.
And Yu-Gi-Oh got that way after a amount of a time and stuff like that. I'd have to say that it's kind of nice seeing that it's kind of nice seeing that the Pokemon TCG game, or at least the online version, is been keeping up with itself. They even just recently repatched or
Hmm.
released some of the old style cards, like the original. You remember the? Come on, Josh. You were around when
Hmm.
those Charizards were going for like $200. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things. And they repatched a lot of the original
Hmm.
set, and now you can actually use the original set. They update, they adjusted for power creep and and scaling, so they are now fully usable.
That's
So
in.
like yeah, I thought that was
Hmm.
a very nifty. You know what I mean? You don't see that a lot.
Yeah, that is interesting, and that's one of the discussions we've been seeing with digital CCG games about whether the developers will approach it like a traditional CCG, where again power creep and power curve will eventually render some cards obsolete, or will
Hmm.
they treat it as a video game where you can patch cards? When if a card does start to fall out of line, you can patch it and update it, and prevents again either cards from being too good or cards not being good
Not
enough.
being good enough, yeah. And you have, when doing the latter of that,
Hmm.
patching the older sets, keep not only does it keep your fan base, it brings in your older guys that have just gone out of it for life reasons. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
maybe and I'm saying this more from personal experience, but like I can look back again and be like, you know what? I really enjoyed playing it back in the day. I wonder if they still have that old Charmander or Charmeleon
Hmm.
card again. And I can see it, and I'm not at a disadvantage because I like that older stuff. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that pulls that older. It's a great marketing tool because it pulls those people that have gone out of it and are
Hmm.
coming back in. And trying to
Definitely.
come back in and stuff. And I think more people should take a lesson from that. You
Hmm.
know, more people should look and see what can happen when you don't alienate your older fan base. And
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of things that we've been seeing. It's one of the issues we've been talking about with Hearthstone as a good example of how a lot of their older cards have really fallen out of line due to the power
Yeah,
creeps that's been added in with
yeah.
later expansions, later
Hmm.
rules, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
and Hearthstone hasn't even been around near half the time that Pokemon
yeah,
has. Yeah.
and I'm going to be very interested to see what Gwent does when it gets eventually
Oh
released.
yeah, yeah.
Because I was thinking about playing more of that tonight and showing that off. I'm getting
Is Gwent
okay
actually
at it.
out? Is it out?
I got into the beta for it. One
Oh,
of the
okay,
few
okay,
times
cool.
that pleading with the beta sign on finally worked. So
Hmm.
I was able to play that. And what's interesting is that tonight's going to be very challenging in terms of keeping track of things. So we have the Discord server set up. So I'm keeping an eye on the Discord chat, the Twitch chat, watching the camera, and talking to you, James. So my focus is
Uh-huh.
being split like four different ways right now. But
I hear you.
hopefully I am good. Hopefully, that will be good at multitasking. So we'll see what happens. But
Hmm.
yeah, like getting back to it, like For Honor, it's definitely going to be telling. Like, as we were saying, like last week or the week before, it's going to be telling to see if that game has legs to keep going. And one of the challenges of
Yeah.
that, again, is the dreaded pay to win tag. Once that gets attached to a game,
Hmm.
it can basically ruin things.
I predict For Honor is gonna start. It's gonna. I think as the game goes on longer, and this is even from just personal experience, as the game continues,
Hmm.
its fan base is going to be whittled. It is going to go the route of a fighting game. The people that are not enjoying it or think that there are
Hmm.
certain cheap things or things that need to be fixed, whatnot, are going to fall out, and the hardcore people that might even realize the game's faults
Hmm.
are going to keep playing it and become really, really good to the point of almost exclusion. It's going to go. I think it's going to go the route of a fighting game where
And
you have multiple people who
hmm
you have a small niche of people who really, really are dedicated to that fan base.
hmm
And the rest are kind of you know, eh. I might try it, and
and then I get my butt kicked by someone.
I get my butt destroyed by a prestige level 5,
Hmm.
and and all of the enjoyment of me trying to enter this new game is just gone.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't have there are still no servers in For Honor, right? It's still a peer to
Yeah,
peer.
no, it's host server,
Yeah,
so
so
your
there's
person
no control
leaves.
there,
Nope.
and there's
Nope.
no ranking or there's no
No.
matchmaking in the game.
Nope.
So those are two very big strikes against new players. Now,
Yeah.
as we were saying, skill will still be out skill, but
Yeah.
if someone brand new comes in and someone has like the gear that gives more damage, and again in a
Hmm.
game like this, every little advantage counts. It's the same with fighting games. If
Yeah.
for instance, if Street Fighter, if Capcom announced there was gear pieces that could make Ryu's Hadouken travel, let's say, a quarter second faster than normal, hardcore players are going to jump on that.
Yeah, and that also literally would change everything about the meta. It would
Hmm.
change everything about, you know what I mean? And it's funny that you mentioned that because
Hmm.
that brings me to a little bit of a segue, but still a topic that needs addressed. We have a new fighting game. There's a new fighting game coming out,
Hmm.
Injustice 2: Gods Among Us, which
Exactly.
is going to have gear score and gear that will affect how each character plays,
Hmm.
and that is going to be really interesting to see how that crowd deals with it. How the fighting game
Yes.
community deals with it. How just the people who want to pick up and play deal with
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I want to ask you more about your thoughts on Justice 2, but very quickly, El
Hmm.
Gore wanted to ask you, do you think you're going to stay for the long run with For Honor?
Out of one, curiosity just to see where it goes, and out of two, I really like games about war and warriors and stuff like that. Plus,
Hmm.
I have a lot of friends that are on it, so I think the game is going to be a more of an intellectual pursuit slash
Hmm.
I play with my friends, but I don't see myself playing that game if I'm not playing with other people. Um,
Hmm.
it's gonna tend to lose its, I think, and I've already had numerous moments where it lost its enjoyment from
Hmm.
for me personally. When I wasn't play It kind of reminded me of a MOBA where,
Hmm.
like, when you get into a MOBA game, if you're playing by yourself, it
Hmm.
is what it is. But if you play with friends, it changes the entire dynamic and experience, because either you're both sucking together, or
Hmm.
and you can complain about whatever bullcrap's going on, or you're both doing relatively good or having some fun and having moments that you can both enjoy together.
Yeah.
And I think For Honor is definitely going to be that way. I played a
Hmm.
little bit of the story mode, and the story mode was actually quite enjoyable. Actually, I didn't actually mind the story mode, and I
Hmm.
also have a friend that thoroughly enjoys playing AI against the AI bots. Something that I do have to say, for the credit of the game,
Hmm.
the AI is phenomenal. Phenomenal, actually, some of the best AI
Hmm.
I've seen. When AI starts doing things that players are doing in game, like the AI will grab you and throw you into off a ledge or into an environmental hazard. The AI, if it thinks it has an advantage, it'll leave a 1v1 duel to go fight another person, because you can actually do a multiplayer versus AI. So like me and another real life person could play 2 AI characters. And I've seen I have yet to see the AI not be able to do anything a character can't do.
Yeah.
It'll spam stuff. Like their AI is really good. It is really good. Now I have seen different levels of AI pop up just randomly when there wasn't a real check. Where like I've seen AI run in a circle, and I've seen some AI start attacking nothing. But for the most part, I'd say a good 90% of the AI in the game was really good to play against.
Yeah, and that's kind of going to be very interesting again going forward. With will people just prefer to play against AI than they will regular players? But going back to what people were mentioning, or what we were just saying with Injustice 2, that's been one that the second they announced that there's going to be parts you can buy or gear you can put onto your characters, that red flag in my head went off about that game. Because as we were saying, competitive players do not like that kind of stuff in their games. They prefer the knowledge that everything is the same as it is each time, so they can train and practice that.
Yeah.
It reminds me again of Street Fighter Cross Tekken when that came out with those gems or whatever that you could put into your characters.
Yeah.
And as we're saying, these little differences will be picked apart by the hardcore, the competitive crowd, because they will look into everything. And again, if you have gear that gives even like a 1% chance or 1% improvement, it's still a very big deal when we're talking about, thousands of dollars on the line if for someone at Evo, for instance.
Yeah. See now here's something where I think, and this is what I think the actual natural progression of this is going to go. I think a lot of the pro scene is going to hate it until it starts to fall into a meta. This, and I think that's actually what they're trying to do in the first place. If you look at a game like League of Legends, you are going into League of Legends knowing that you have no idea what your opponent is going to be building because of the item system. You know what I mean? And the item system, even if you can have Garen is a character in League of Legends, you can have his stats all locked down for and memorized by heart on every move that he does from levels 1 to 20. But the second he gets an item, it changes things. And you cannot account for it. Even the pros can't account for it, which actually adds a level of, I don't want to say strategy. It is strategy, but there's another word for it too. Well, there's another word. Unpredictability and strategy, which strategic unpredictability, which sounds almost like a conundrum or an oxymoron, but it really isn't in MOBAs. You know what I mean? You know how Garen plays. You understand what kind of damage he can do on his basic attack. So the second you start adding the other elements onto it, the second you start adding the other element, you're gonna have to check his gear and keep up to date with what he's building or how he's playing and stuff like that. But I think to a lot of the pro scene, they actually enjoy some of that. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it fun. Am I fighting a defensive Garen? I still remember, this is, to any of you guys that are watching this that are pro ESL fans or whatnot, I cannot remember the teams, I cannot remember the player, but there is a character called Warwick in League of Legends, and he is a melee assassin, kind of werewolf he's a werewolf melee assassin kind of guy. And, mostly you build attack speed and attack damage on it. That's what attack speed, attack damage, and, movement speed so he can catch his prey. Just normal stuff, but, normal boring things. And I remember there was a professional match where somebody went tank with him because he does, as a werewolf, he has a natural ability to heal off of basic attacks. And somebody took that, and instead of giving him all damage items, they gave him all health and defense items. So, and the team that they were playing against was completely unprepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
When they saw Warwick fly out of there, and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's a DPS light character. We'll just beat him down." And they jumped on him and realized he was healing and not dying. It changed the way. I think that was a real big hallmark of not just League of Legends, but in gaming in general, where the MOBA scene, you don't know what's out there. You have no idea when the meta is going to shift. And the meta, Pokemon saw it too. I think it was 2 years ago. Again, pro fans, please forgive me. But somebody brought an Emolga to a game, and Emolga is not normally used ever. So when people saw it, it changed everything. They weren't ready for it. And I think you're going to see that in games like I think you're going to start seeing that in games like Injustice, Gods Among Us 2, where you're going to start seeing these metas start to pop up and pop out, where you might see a Batman who starts using the Batarang that stuns you instead of does damage, and then everything is going to shift from there.
Yeah. Now, of course, the risk that they run with that is, once again, like with something like Hearthstone, it's a never-ending battle to keep the meta from solidifying. Because once someone knows what the best items are, the best cards, then everyone knows what the best cards are. And then it comes down to either you use the best or you lose. And we see this a lot with Hearthstone, with how the meta has shifted so many different times. Again, I'm using my very limited knowledge of Hearthstone. I know that there's been, from what I saw, a lot of people using like Reno decks. And then there's stuff like Reno Lock, a Control Warrior. There was a time where Miracle Rogue was like one of the best options in the game.
Yeah.
And with something like, now of course Hearthstone is an abstracted based title. This player action is not being called in when you're drawing cards from your deck.
It's specifically mechanically based. Yeah.
But with a game like Injustice, where we're having player input and player skill come into play, that's going to be a little bit more interesting. If they have pieces that, let's say, again, speeds up your attack animation by a little bit, or makes a certain combo go a little bit longer, or it gives it a little bit more damage, what will that mean towards, again, the meta and the hardcore crowd? Go ahead.
In the pro scene, my question would be like, and on the same side that you're saying, Josh, how do you train for that?
Yeah.
How do you train to defend against something that you don't even know could be coming? You know what I mean? You might know your character very, very well and how they play, but you could come up against somebody who, you know what I mean? It's almost impossible to train against, which I do agree with you. You might start seeing some people a little upset over that. So
yeah, and again, like, you don't know what exactly, as you just said, James, you don't know what they're going to be using. Now, some cases you can have like tournaments, forbid certain items. I think with like Smash Brothers, I think there are certain banned characters that you can't use in tournament play.
Yeah.
So they may do something along those lines. I know they definitely did something when they were trying to get Street Fighter Cross Tekken into like competitive scene. Like they would ban certain gems from being used on characters.
Yeah, you think they might actually ban and like I said, in For Honor, there are modes that you can go into where gear score has no forbearance. It's disabled. And you can do custom matches in the game where gear score is disabled, and you can just take off gear score. So, like, it's another thing I think when you start seeing, because let's put it this way, I think I honestly wholeheartedly believe that For Honor is going to have an ESL scene. It's going to have a pro scene. And when we start seeing that, I honestly believe that that's going to be how people deal with that. You're going to see custom matches, and gear score is going to be disabled. They're going to have to.
Yep.
They're gonna have to. It's almost too randomized to let go.
Yep, definitely. Again, as you're saying, like when we're talking about competitive scene, like even like 2% difference on certain skills or certain attributes
Yep.
can mean big deals.
Yeah. Very
Like
much so.
when you're watching a game like Injustice, it is very much a combo centric game, and we have
Hmm.
combos that can do like 30%, 40%, or even
Hmm.
50% of someone's health.
Yep.
What if there's a right gear combination that turns a combo to do 70%
Uh-huh.
or 80% of someone's health if it catches? And then
Hmm.
you run into this case where it's no longer about fighting the game or fighting the character. It's about keeping your health above 80%. Because you know
Yeah.
the second your health drops below that, they're going to try and hit you with that combo, and then there's literally nothing you can do
Yeah.
if they catch you with it.
Well, and you can't even prepare for that if
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what their gear is. You literally could go into a fight and they automatically have an advantage, and neither one of you knows that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's always been the major point of contention when we talk about adding in these little items or persistence elements into competitive based titles.
Yeah.
Uh, and let me see. I know they've been announcing quite a bit about Injustice or Injustice 2 over the last few
Hmm.
days or last few weeks. So I mean, it definitely looks interesting, but it's it's still going to be very hard, I think, to convince competitive players that they would want something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
I'm trying to mess with my camera. I keep feeling that I'm like off center for some reason, but I can't. I'm not sure if that's true or not. For those of you watching this, do I appear like I'm like center like on my camera right now, or am I just being nuts again? Anyway, let me know while we're going over this. Looks like my L fell behind me on my side too. Perfect. Um.
Now, a question I have for you, Josh, though,
Mhm.
is how different is the fighting game community
Mhm.
has more of an issue with this kind of problem. But what about the MOBA community where varied play and different builds are part of the game? That's
Mhm.
literally what they're why they are playing the game. That's why they're there. And how, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how is it that they can deal with something like that when other it almost seems taboo to throw
Mhm.
that kind of stuff in a fighting game?
I'm sorry. I was reading part of the chat while you were talking. What was the first part of your question, James?
I'm just saying, how does MOBA deal with those
Ah.
randomized elements as opposed to the fighting game community, who seems to almost abhor those kind of
Mhm.
elements, the randomization?
Mhm. Now, when you say the randomized part of like the MOBA scene, I just want to make sure.
I'm more speaking about builds, random
Okay,
builds, as
the
opposed.
build.
Yeah.
So like using the set items in the game kind of thing.
Hmm.
So the in-game store in Dota
Hmm.
or League of Legends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point about that. Hmm. I think actually I need to think about that one for a second.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of, I mean, because that is specifically why they are playing those kind of games,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like I said, when I saw that guy
Hmm.
go a completely different direction with a well-known character, it really kind of changed. I don't want to say changed the
Hmm.
game, but really definitely added a different spin, a different take. It literally said, and the same thing
Mm-hmm.
with the Pokemon. When somebody threw out a
Mm-hmm.
completely different build and a Pokemon that's not used in that meta, it changed everything. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's one of the reasons why I am still an advocate for that randomization through customization.
Yeah. I'm just trying to. I'm like talking this out in my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of this has to be how the items are introduced, in the sense that when you're playing a game like League of Legends or Dota, the shop is standard among everybody. It's
Everybody can see it. Everybody
yeah,
can see the
everyone
shop.
can
Yep.
see it. Everyone can buy the items. It's not like let's say by grinding matches, I can bring in my own item, or let's say I can bring
Yeah.
in an upgrade item that no one else can get access to through that play.
Mm-hmm.
While when we talk about like a fighting game, because the items are being delivered randomly or piecemeal like that, it's not the same kind of thing in the sense that You may get a very lucky item. Like, we can't exactly. I guess there's the lack of control may be maybe the difference here. But as you said, that's kind of part of the point here that no there is no set play or no set strategy to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Elgora is saying in chat, I do agree with you that the hardcore competitive scene will definitely determine the fate of Injustice 2. And again, I think we're both going to be very interested to see how they're going to take to this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you made a really good point there, James, about that the MOBA scene has been pretty much designed around that, with the fact that you can have these different character builds, you can mess with things along those lines, and everyone is perfectly fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's definitely been frowned upon when it comes to the fighting game scene. And it kind of raises like a point that I talked about a very long time ago, that um, when we talk about these titles, or when you talk about anything like this, it's kind of like akin to racing. How much does the driver really factor in? Like, if you put the best driver in the world behind a lemon, it doesn't matter how good they are, they're going to lose every race.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
put someone who's never driven before behind a supercar, they're going to probably crash within
It's
10
gonna give them
seconds.
yeah, yeah.
So there's
Yep.
always that balance between player skill and the items in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess another major point about this is because it is set in a game like Dota or League of Legends, they can basically see exactly how all the items can possibly work at any given time. But when you're
Mm-hmm.
delivering things again like these little pieces, it's I'm highly doubting that NetherRealm has tested every item combination with every character with every special move in that entire game. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with something like Hearthstone. You never know what will become the new meta until your competitive scene will, pick it apart like vultures, basically. They
Mm-hmm.
will devour, or like piranhas, basically. I guess that's
Yeah.
another good one.
Yeah, and I think they need to too,
Hmm.
and because it's one of those things. Again, what the second developer puts that out there, they are
Hmm.
saying, "Here's the game, uh, rip it to shreds." You know what I mean? And whether it's in the beta or the alpha, the second they let a consumer get a
Hmm.
hold of that game, it is going to be torn to shreds, and people are gonna, you know what I mean, and people are gonna have to rate it on that type of scale.
Yeah.
And I think whether or not the developers are ready for that,
Hmm.
so you know what I mean, it remains to be seen.
Hmm. And as we see with something like For Honor, when you add RPG progression to the mix on top of that, that just adds another
Mm-hmm.
monkey wrench in the proceedings. So now you're
Yeah.
dealing with different gear, and then you're dealing with different qualities of gear, and then you're dealing with different levels of qualities of gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why we see it's just easier to leave that stuff cosmetic, like we see in Overwatch. Like
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard would be crazy at this point to start throwing in items,
Customization.
yeah, that actually change how these characters work.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And it's interesting to see that Overwatch is still like in the news kind of thing. I know they are announcing. I believe they are doing like major character changes to a few of their mainstays. I heard that
Yeah.
Bastion's going to be upgraded.
Yes, Bastion's getting a
Hmm.
rework. Yeah, a complete rework too.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna change the way he plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Symmetra got an upgrade, I think, a while
Yeah,
ago.
she got a complete rework, which I main Symmetra, so
Hmm.
and I'm usually very anti-change on characters that I play.
Hmm.
The Symmetra rework was good. It was very well done.
And part of me figures that it's only going to be a matter of time before they get to the other characters. Because again, we talked about this a few
Yeah.
minutes ago with that power curve. You
Mm-hmm.
make Bastion better, well, now you gotta make someone else better,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then and
Yep.
so on and so forth. It's basically like the never-ending thing for
Yeah.
football fans. War never changes, and neither does a stable meta.
Very true.
And Overwatch, I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that keeps on growing along those lines. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, with Team Fortress, anyone who's played Team Fortress from the days of the Orange Box, whereas today, knows that game is fundamentally different from when we first played in, I think it was like 2007, I want to say. So I just wonder, like in a year's time, someone loading up, like for me, like if I decide to just play Overwatch again 1 year from now, is it going to be a completely different experience?
Well, I think it's going to be regardless because hopefully by a year from now, you're going to have different characters, and different characters always change the way you approach a
Mm-hmm.
situation. And you know what I mean? Like it changed
Mm-hmm.
for me. I stopped playing Overwatch for just a little bit, and was playing other stuff. And when I came back, Sombra had been out for a bit, and I had never played with her, played against her, and it
Mm-hmm.
really did. You know what I mean? Before in Overwatch, all characters are visible almost all the time.
Yeah.
Sombra changed everything. Sombra is main gimmick is she can go
Mm-hmm.
invisible. So that is now something you have to now deal with, and
Exactly.
whether that's for better or for worse is in the eyes of the beholder, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's very, very
And I think in
interesting.
a game like Overwatch, that is considered more fair compared to something like in Hearthstone when they add
Hmm.
in new cards. Because again, in a game like Hearthstone, it's not just they add in cards and you can use it. It's they add in cards and you have to buy it.
Yeah,
But in Overwatch, because it is a retail game, all those character upgrades are part of that, just like was in Team Fortress. So even though I may not play the game, I got access to Sombra. I'm gonna get access to whoever the new character is,
hmm,
and new maps, new specials, new whatever.
yeah.
All those changes, I'm gonna be able to get access to.
I think that's right though.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that that's
Mhm.
how it should be. If you're offering your game up,
Mhm.
then you know what I mean. And it's weird to say. I can also see the other side of it. Like when
Mhm.
you bought Mortal Kombat X, you didn't instantly get all the characters, especially and any character that
Mhm.
was coming out. You had to, you know what I mean. You still had to actually buy the other characters. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see
Mhm.
how, Blizzard. I think
Mhm.
Blizzard's still going with the hey, you
Mhm.
know, we, I guess we have enough money so that even if you do, no matter what you do, we're gonna have enough money to
Mhm.
supplement supplement you guys
Yeah.
not buying your characters.
As we've said with World of Warcraft, Blizzard basically has, I think, at this point, infinity money. Like if
Yeah,
they ever run out of money, that's a sign of the end times right there.
yeah,
If
definitely.
Blizzard says we're broke now, I'm heading into a bunker at that point because
Uh-huh.
it's the end. Or
Yeah,
if Half-Life 3 comes out, one or the other is the sign of the end times right now.
yeah. You better watch it, dude. Tomorrow they're gonna announce Half-Life 3, and
Hmm.
Blizzard's stock price is plummeting.
Oh god. Now I'm hiding in my hiding in my crawl space then for
What?
the rest of
No,
that day.
no, don't worry, because even though it's the end of the world, Bethesda's going to be releasing Fallout Go.
Hmm.
Take your phone and look at all the you're in the new nuclear fallout.
Oh, and then we can have you can do that while the end of the world is happening.
Hmm.
So it'll be like a Fallout Inception there.
Yeah.
And of course, we know that I think we all know that Half-Life 3 will be a visual novel dancing game. I think we're all waiting for that to happen.
Uh,
Hmm. So I'm just reading the comments there. GTA Go. El Gordo just said, "Oh God, Grand Theft Auto Go."
Grand Theft Auto Go. Oh,
Oh
jeez.
goodness.
Wow. With real life police. The role of these police officers will be played by real life officers.
Oh goodness.
GTA Go, the game you can only play once.
Yes. And if you win, then you kind of lose.
You kind of lose too.
Speaking about VR editions, I know that Psychonauts is getting a VR. There's a VR sequel to Psychonauts, I think either out or coming out soon. All right, let me see. Because I was hearing some people talk about that. Yeah, apparently it's either out or it's coming out in a few days. That they're
Mm.
doing a. Oh, it's not a sequel. It's basically the bridge between Psychonauts 1 and 2.
Okay.
Oh, it's already out. Thank you, Algordo. Yeah, at one point we need to get Ken on because we need to have an update on his thoughts on all the VR stuff that's been happening.
Yeah, definitely, and he's definitely one to talk to about that since he's cutting edge. He's right on the
Hmm.
the rim for that kind of
Oh yeah.
stuff.
We've of course joked that he's going to turn his apartment to like the Matrix over there with all the VR stuff he
I
has.
think he's well on his way to doing it too.
Hmm. So people have been complaining about the new Psychonauts that it is too short, and
Oh.
that is easily another like hour and a half, 2 hour discussion. We start talking about that now.
Mm.
Before I get to a topic that I want to bring up, let's see if we can have a little bit of a pop quiz if anyone's interested in a free copy of the Stanley Parable. So, did you play that game, James?
No, I didn't. That was a game I never got a chance to play. I wanted to though. Yeah,
Mm.
it's definitely was a really interesting game. That's one where the guy's like talking you through like what's
Hmm.
going on in Stanley's life, right?
Yeah, and it basically just is one of those games where you go down the rabbit hole to another rabbit hole, and then things get
Hmm.
even weirder from there.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of a good, like, random video game pop quiz question. So while I'm thinking about that, do you have any other games you've played this week, James?
Uh, CCG game. I've returned back to Heroes of the Storm. Me and a good
Really?
friend of mine had started playing that again, which actually really enjoy Heroes of the Storm. It's for those of you who don't know, it's Blizzard's take on the MOBA genre, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I actually really enjoy Heroes of the Storm. I think it's a very
It's
an enjoyable game.
is it still like popular? Are you like are there still like a crowd of people
I
playing that?
don't I've gotten games. I can't say I haven't gotten games. But no, I don't know. It's funny because I think it's definitely a one of Blizzard's like middle children in the fact that I
Mm-hmm.
think Blizzard's kind of forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they still do stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, I think it still has maintained popularity and stuff. So, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's still going pretty strong.
I mean, one thing's about Blizzard that's always been very interesting that again their games become they really do a lot of good with cross promoting their titles because each
Yes.
game
Yep.
is its own genre.
Hmm.
So like Heroes of the Storm doesn't step on the toes of Diablo, who doesn't step on the toes of World of Warcraft, but then they
Yeah.
do stuff like you do well in World of Warcraft, maybe you get a custom
Yeah,
skin for
they like to
Overwatch.
reward players for players who have continued to play Blizzard titles. Like I've gotten because I've played Hearthstone, I've got stuff for Heroes of the Storm. Just recently, actually, it's funny. One of the reasons why I jumped back on Heroes of the Storm too was I wanted the new Genji skin that they made a Genji skin that you could only get by completing certain things on Heroes of the Storm, and it would unlock the Genji skin for your Overwatch character. So
And then, of course, once you've gotten that character, then you're like, well, I've gone back into Heroes of the Storm. Let me play that a little bit more.
yeah,
And I'm sure there'll be like some challenge in Heroes of the Storm that will get you, or I'm sorry, there'll be something in Overwatch
and
that will
Overwatch
get you
that'll
some
get you
for Heroes of
playing.
the Storm.
So far, I haven't seen anything from Overwatch directly affecting any other game modes or
Hmm.
any other Blizzard games, but I wouldn't doubt it's not. I wouldn't doubt that it's coming. I wouldn't doubt that it's coming.
Definitely. All right. So I guess here is, I guess, a little bit of a pop quiz if we're going to try and give things away. There's only two people in chat, but that's why I kind of save. There's still a lot more games on my Humble Freedom Bundle, so maybe if tomorrow we get a pretty big crowd when Trayvon comes back on, we'll try another giveaway.
Hmm.
So we'll see if either one of you guys can catch this, or if James, if you want to play along as well, maybe you
Okay.
can be
Yeah,
a win the
definitely.
copy of the Stanley Parable here. So,
Uh-huh.
the Stanley Parable is obviously one of the quote unquote walking simulator games. A game that did. It's more about like, being exposed to the story rather than, intense, complicated gameplay. And another popular examples of that kind of story focused game would be something like To the Moon. I was going to say Dear Esther or Gone Home, but I think that would be too easy.
Hmm.
So To the Moon, of course, very emotional game. I really like that one.
Hmm.
So I guess the super quick pop quiz is the first person to tell me what was the developer of To the Moon will get a free copy of the Stanley Parable.
Mm.
So if anyone wants to jump on that while we continue our little discussion, feel free. So with that said, one thing that I thought was very interesting, and unfortunately, James, you missed our podcast today, but I was
Uh-huh.
talking with the developer behind Regency Solitaire,
Okay.
and let me pull up his site, Gray Alien Games, and we got on the subject of casual games and how the casual market has really shifted its perception over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And XP got it with Freebird Games. So if I can figure out how to send you, oh, there you go. I'll send you a whisper with the gift link to the Stanley Parable in 1 minute.
Congratulations.
If I can figure that out, there you go. And I'll send it over to you in a minute. And what we were talking about was that perception of how casual games have really been, downplayed due to just the free to play or the mobile explosion of that field.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about that we really haven't seen, like, I think there is a lot of merit in casual games in terms of, I guess, making them, like, the accessibility of casual games, I think, does require a lot more credit that some people will give. Like, stuff like Plants vs. Zombies, Arfix Mundi as another example.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I wanted to ask you about, James, is when it comes to like casual games, have there been any of those that you particularly enjoyed, despite the, uh, I guess the displeasure that some people have for that casual market?
And by casual games, what do you really mean by that? Like,
Um,
just games that aren't in like phone games or.
Games that are designed around like either being like a very relaxed atmosphere, something that isn't like that same kind of like technical mastery that we see in like fighting games, Dark Souls, or
Mm-hmm.
anything along those lines.
So I've actually been playing a lot of the phone game. Well, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of TCGs. So
Hmm.
any game that usually has some sort of card, monster, warrior smacking each other around element to it. I'm definitely all for. So as far as the casual stuff goes, I definitely would say that like one of the two of the games I picked up, like on my phone that I play casually, would be the not Clash Royale
Hmm.
and Plants vs Zombies Heroes. I think it's called
Hmm.
Plants vs Zombies Heroes, which is again like a bit of a card game. Where you just put down different heroes and have them throw stuff at each other. It's basically like a mini the card game version of Plants vs Zombies, the original game.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think those kind of games. I mean, let's put it this way: the numbers do not scream casual because
Hmm.
if you put how much money a lot of these games are making, they're
Hmm.
they're competing along the lines of some of the AAA, action pack, big blockbuster games. So I honestly would say, well, don't count them out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So on that note, that's probably what I'd say about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the Clash Royale, Clash of Clans kind of thing was kind of
Hmm.
interesting to me. I kind of just cleared the chat because I think it popped up my private message there, but that's fine.
Hmm.
Again, still trying to learn these things. Oh, 1 second. Let me refresh that. There we go. That's better. Yeah, and that's kind of the as Olgor was saying about casual games do attract the whales, and it's always been
Yeah.
that, and that's kind of the thing. Like the older, when we talk about like the golden age of the casual market.
Hmm.
1 second here. We're talking about the days of like Big Fish Games, PopCap, and those games, which were retail releases. There was no monetization elements there. The
Yeah.
most that they had was the oh, excuse me, the shareware. You play for an hour.
Hmm.
If time goes out, you want to still play it. Give us money. If not,
Yeah.
thanks for trying
Oh,
our
oh, oh,
demo.
well, oh well. Yeah. Yep. Hmm.
And we got on the subject of the fact that it is still that you can still have, I think, like elevated takes of casual design, but it's just very hard to pitch that to someone.
Yeah.
And he talked about how what was very interesting to me, and as kind of a spoiler for a cast, which you guys won't even hear yet, we already were playing a second cast on top of that one. But we talked about how with his game Regency Solitaire, that it actually did worse on Steam than it did on like the casual channels or the casual sites that you can download those games from.
Really?
And I
Hmm.
thought that was very interesting because one of the things that we have to talk about is the fact that for a lot of people consider Steam to be, you know, the chosen land, the promised land. You get
Yeah.
on Steam, fame and fortune will follow essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned this with Trayvon the other night that for a lot of people, I think rely on Steam as a crutch in that regard.
Yeah.
That they don't put in the work for, doing good PR, good marketing. They just expect being on Steam to be enough about that.
Yeah, and it isn't. Yeah, for people. You still got to put in the work. You still got to do
Hmm.
advertising. You still got to promote your game. Promote, promote, promote. I mean, yeah, Steam is not there to do all the work for you. It's just there to help sell your game easier. You know what I mean? It's there to help. It's a tool, but it should not be in the place of it should not take the place of good old fashioned elbow grease, as they say.
Hmm. And and as Algora was saying that, and that's kind of one of the issues with like casual games and that kind of monetization is that you can see that there is a good game underneath that at some point, but
Yeah.
the monetization just gets piled on and on by it that it's very hard to enjoy. Like when we were talking about Orcs Must Die Unchained, and
Hmm.
how it has some really good gameplay, but a lot of it's underneath that monetization and the loot boxes and stuff like that. What's
Hmm.
very telling, or what's going to be very interesting, to see how people respond to Fire Emblem Heroes, which is, of course, the mobile game, the next mobile game from Nintendo,
Oh yeah,
and
yep,
using
yeah,
gotcha design for that.
yeah. Hmm. Which I mean, Nintendo. I think actually, if you go in the Nintendo store, they have a lot of those little tiny casual games
Hmm.
that just kind of, you can tell took a development team like 2 weeks to make. And I don't know whether to be impressed that Nintendo is, branching out on its own, or ashamed that Nintendo is using a cheap uh, ploy to weasel people out of their money. But I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of both, I'd say.
Yeah. And as a very interesting aside with that, while we're talking about Nintendo, I just completely forgot that the Nintendo Switch is like due out like in like what was it, like 8 or no like
No, I
almost like a
think
little over a week from now,
is it a week? Okay, because I
March
saw some
3rd.
people already unboxing it,
Yeah,
so I know it's coming out soon.
yeah. I put in the request to get a press copy of that, but I think the chance of that happening is like lightning striking my house right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, so we shall see with that. But yeah, like that's always been like from like comments and such that some of the that monetization can really bring a lot of these games down, and
Yeah.
it's very rare to see it be a positive. And for those of you watching this live right now, the critical thought for today talking about pay or wait mechanics, I pose this question: is it possible to do that stuff justice? Is it possible to make a game with loot box design or gotcha that doesn't seem like a ripoff for cash? And there's always that push and pull because if you, Elgora is saying about me getting a lightning striking my house, I can up the chance if we compare to lightning striking his house right now
Mm,
in a thunderstorm. My point is, like, if you make it too free, then people don't spend money, your game goes out of business. If
yep.
you put too much monetization on, then you piss people off. They don't spend money. Your game goes out of business.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that middle ground is what developers have been struggling to find.
Very much so.
Let me check our time here. We're just hitting an hour, I think, now in terms of the recording.
Mhm.
I think if it's right with you, James, I think we'll wrap things up for tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
because we are going to be having our chat hopefully with Trayvon tomorrow night, or again for those of you watching this recorded, it will probably be the night before. No, it'll probably be this night. Again, with all these live casts and stuff I'm posting, it's all going to be out of order. I'm going to have to sort through this, but um, we'll probably continue this talk tomorrow. And of course, we have to talk more about action game design and Steam Direct. Yeah, that's a really good point, Elgort. I think one of the things that does help is if there are multiple ways of using it. Like, you just don't have content that can only be unlocked through premium currency. Make it, part of the free currency. Like, as long as there are multiple ways of getting through it, it's not just, I spend money on everything, and...
I win.
Yes. Let me see. We could probably do a quick test of the Discord server. I set up the voice channel to see if that will work. Let me see. Like, I have it set to only one person can join at a time. That will hopefully keep it so that we don't have, like, if things do get popping up, we won't have, like, 5 or 6 people jumping in and, overloading things.
Mm-hmm.
So we can definitely test that out. We could even test that out tomorrow with Trayvon on to see if we can do that. Actually, I think we'll... let's try that tomorrow, I think, El Gordo. We'll try that during the Twitch stream, and Gerald's there too. Yeah, we'll try that tomorrow while we have a bigger audience, and that way we can see we get more people on and give it a really good test. And of course, with it being live, there will surely be bugs and issues that will happen, as we've all seen when we did it last time. But let's wrap things up here. So for those of you watching this live, chances are I would like to do a stream of something tonight. We'll just have to see what that something is. I'll be posting the critical thought in a few minutes. Be sure to check back tomorrow on the Twitch stream around 9 Eastern tomorrow. Will be our chat with Trayvon, part 2. And for those of you watching this recorded on YouTube, if things go right in terms of when everything will be posted, part 1 and part 2 will be up the following day and then the day after that. So, for now, let's say goodnight. Yeah, that's true, Elgort. It's better if you fail low from our discussion yesterday. So, James, thank you so much for coming on. I think we had a lot of fun, and tomorrow will be great to finish our talk with Trayvon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
All right. So, until then... No, we'll be failing on air probably. Off air doesn't really matter, but we'll see what happens. All right. So let's wrap it up here. Once again, have a great rest of the night, and we'll catch you all tomorrow. So until then, once again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you all then. Have a great night.